Joy and welcome to my studio. We're going to be learning some individual wax designs, and if you're not familiar with the wax technique, come on over and check out this link and it'll teach you all the basics you need to know.
Today I'm going to show you how to do a circle and a double circle, and these are the Miriam Joy circle templates. This is the large set, and we've picked out the two smallest, and I'm going to trace on the inside of those and remove the next one without moving it and trace on the inside of that as well. Now next thing I'm going to do is find the center of my circle as close as I can so I know where I am pulling my stroke to. On the inside circle I'm going to use a smaller tool, and I'm going to either use probably a 1 or a 0. I think I'm going to use a 0. I'm going to try the larger end, and we're going to set that in that wax and let that warm up for just a second. And we remember we always want to pull the stroke towards us, so we're going to move our paper as we're going. So we're going to start on the outside of the stroke, set that down, and pull that to the center. If it doesn't make it all the way to the center, that is fine. So we're going to flip our paper over and pull that down. Now we're going to go and divide it into 4s. And this helps the circle to turn out nice and even. And don't rush it, just take it nice and slow. And I could have gone up a size tool to the number 1. So we're going to divide these into 8 now. And I always work towards my right so that I do not lose my spot. So we're going to continue dividing those off. Now if you had a real small circle, 8 may be enough, but you can see we still have quite a bit of room there. So we're going to divide that into 16 now. So again, we're just going to work our way to the right. And another thing, these strokes were small enough that you could put 2 in between each one of those if you were doing just the circle and not the double circle. But we want enough room that we can do a double circle. So we're almost there. And just by dividing it is so much easier. You don't have to stop and think about what you're doing or where you're going. It's so much easier that way. So that's how we create a circle. So I'm going to switch up to my number 2 tool, the smaller end. We're going to warm that up just for a second. And this is already divided. We already know our space. So we're coming in between all of those strokes all the way around our circle. So we don't have to divide it off like we did last time. So it will fit. A lot of people don't think it's going to fit, but the fattest part of that stroke is just going right between those other 2. Just take your time and go nice and slow. If you get on the red part a little bit, that is okay. Don't worry about it. Just divide it off and keep on going. And you can see we're reloading each and every time because you are running out of wax. So you want to make sure that you reload each and every time. And this is just a basic double circle. And there's so much more you can do to it once you learn the basics. But we want you to start out with simple and then grow from there. So we're almost all the way around. Continue to move the paper or whatever project you're working on around so you're pulling it right towards you. And then our last stroke. And then the thing I always do is either put an embellishment in the middle or put a drop, and just see how that cleans that up so much nicer. Now if you were doing bigger strokes and your circle was closer together, you might want to do the outside first and then do the inside. Now we had enough room and it kept it nice and clean, but if it's not keeping it real clean, do that last, and then that will be on top and it'll be a lot neater. Today we're going to show you how to make a square, and these are the Miriam Joy square templates. I'm going to pick 1/3 from the smallest and just set them down, hold on with them with your fingers, and just trace the inside. So we have a nice square there, and I wiggled a little bit on that one line. Then I'm going to put a dot right in the center so I know where I'm pulling my strokes from. Now this is easy because you've already got your corners, so we're going to pull them right from the corners, and I'm going to use a number 2 brush. Now I'm going to run out of wax before I get to that center dot, but that's okay because the sides it's going to be a lot closer. So we're just going to do all 4 of these corners. Remember, you're turning it each time so that you're pulling your stroke right towards you. Now we're going to divide it off again, and see, that one's going to be a lot closer to the center. So divide that off again for a total of 8 strokes, reloading each and every time. And we've got enough room that we can divide it off again for a total of 3 strokes in between. If you didn't, you could stop and do 2 strokes in between. But by filling up the area really well, it really makes the design look good. So I think we'll end up with about 32 strokes when we're done here. And then show you how much nicer it looks really filled in. And always pull towards that center. Don't meet up with the other strokes. Always go for that center dot, no matter what. Now you can see how we still have quite a bit of area. And I'm always work towards my right so that I don't lose my spot. And we're just coming in between those now and filling those in one more time. And that's really going to make the area fill in nicely. And don't worry on the sides if they don't come all the way in. But by dividing it off, it makes it so much easier. Lets you know where to go next than if you just try to conquer it without dividing it. It can be a little bit overwhelming. But you can see how nice that's starting to fill in. Got a couple more here. And that is how we do our square. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do kind of a Fleur de Lis. So I'm going to be using my number 2 tool, the small end, and I'm going to start out with a nice long stroke right down the middle. Just pull that until it's ended. And then we're going to do a stroke from the right, kind of curve, and meet in with that tail and go right down that. And we're going to do that on the left side. Now I'm also, that's basically a Fleur de Lis design right there, but I'm going to take it and put a design. I'm going to figure out that went about that far, so that one should go about that far. And if you need to mark it off with your pencil, you can. And we're going to turn that around and do it the other way. And what I'm trying to teach you is how to take a basic design and build on it. So this time I'm going to come up and I'm going to add one right there. And you should turn your paper, pull it towards you. It's a lot easier. And I've got enough room, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm trying to bring these in a little bit more each time. I'm going to do one more right there. And you could keep building on that as much as you wanted to. I'm going to add a descending dot, which means I'm letting it run out of wax right up the middle. And I'm going to add a design right there. But you could keep on building that, but that's kind of the basics of that design. In this video, I'm going to teach you the crashing wave design, and I use it a lot around a border. So I'm going to put a circle on just to kind of give you an idea what I mean. And I usually start the stroke right about there and bring it down to the design and continue all the way around. So I'm going to be using a smaller tool this time, and I'm working with my 0, the small end. And we're going to load it and just bring it down. Now you could even go to a smaller tool, because you see that tail is not quite running out before it gets there. And you can go all the way around the design. You can draw these on. You don't have to freehand them all. And that would keep them more consistent in size. And we're almost to the last one here. We want to kind of just make sure that we had enough room to put him right in there. And you can see I got a little bit bigger on the other side than I did this side. But with practice, you'll kind of learn how to even that out. So I'm going to go ahead and do some dots just to complete the design. You could do every other one. You could do each dot right where they meet. Or I've also done just put a dot right in the center of that, or both. There is no right or wrong to that, but that's kind of basically what I refer to as the crashing wave design. In this video, I'm going to teach you a design that I call the rolling wave. And you can draw it on with your pencil first if you need to. To me, it looks like a wave. You kind of pull it up and to the right, back and to the left, and then kind of back towards the middle. And then your next stroke is going to start right in that one, and you're going to keep on going. And you try to keep them similar in length. And you can do it right over the top of that. So we'll start, and I've got my number 2 tool. I'm using a small end, and I'm going right over that. Now see, that's just a little bit smaller than what I have the design drawn there, but that's okay. Right in his tail, right where his tail starts, and we just set that down and pull it right to the end. So if you get real comfortable, you can do that without the design. And I use this a lot around my edges of my design, or a box, or to make the design nicer, whatever you want to do. And see, doesn't that look kind of like a rolling wave? You also can reverse the stroke and do it the opposite direction. And then sometimes I have to stop and think about this when I'm doing it. So this is kind of more of an S shape when it's going this direction, just not quite as turned in when it's going that way. So if you had a heart, you had one side going this way and the other side going that way, that would be fine. So now I'm going to switch to a smaller tool, and I'm just going to put in dots, and the dots just kind of complete the design for me. Now you can put them on the top, or you could put them on the bottom. Remember to make your dots consistent in size. You reload each and every time. Or we could do both of those. So there is no right or wrong on that, but that is basically our rolling wave design. We're going to work on a basic leaf and show you how to do a basic leaf and how to add to it a little bit. But you can use this leaf on a lot of your flower designs or different designs. So we're just going to come in, and your tool will depend on what size of leaf you want to make. So for now I'm using the number 2 tool, the small end. If you're just starting out, that's a great tool to start with. And I'm going to be using green. And I'm just going to set my stroke down and pull it to a point. And if you want to pull it this way, so you're pulling it towards you, you can. I always tell you that's the best way to pull it. And so we're going to do it again on the other side. And this should be up next to your flower or whatever, so it's not really open. If you're doing it by itself, you may want to close it up more. Now, by simply coming in and changing colors, I went to yellow green and pulling that right down the middle, that totally changes your stroke. So I'm going to do another one, and I'm going to have it meet up more this time, so it's just kind of a leaf by itself. When you're working on paper, paper doesn't pull the strokes as long as sealed items do. I'm just putting that right down the middle. So that's kind of our basic leaf. Now, we also can come in and add some more veins to the side. I'm switching over to a smaller tool, and I'm just going to pull that out just to add a little bit more to it. So you have changed your total look of your leaf just by adding those strokes. Now, the basic leaf is also the leaf that we use to make our sunflower and our poinsettias, and we'll go into that a little bit further, but I wanted you to understand how to do the basic leaf. I'm going to show you how to do a heart leaf, and this is one of my favorite ones, and we'll show you why I kind of call it a heart leaf. I wasn't quite sure what else to call it. If you had your flower right in this area, you want to think about how far out you want your leaf, and we're going to do this one the opposite. We're going to start at that point and work our way in. So I'm going to start right there and pull one stroke in nice and long. And then my second stroke is going to go out to the side, curve out and curve in to join up with that first stroke. The same on the left side, curve it out and curve it back in. We've kind of got our heart shaped. Now we're going to build on this. Your next one should be down, but it should be out further, making that leaf fatter. And we're going to continue to do that, just building it each time until you get to your flower, or that you feel that your leaf is fat enough. And that's really, really that simple. And that one I do call my heart leaf. I'm going to show you how to do a holly leaf, and I do a lot of these, especially at Christmas time. And I'm going to start at this one point. So I'm going to start at the point, and then I'm going to kind of curve in and then back out, kind of a backwards C shape, and start where you left off on your last one and straight across on that one. Now this one we're going to go back down the same height of that one, coming to a really sharp tail. So let's go and do the same on the left hand side. We're going to start right there, curve that out and up. Now this one's just going to curve, but it's going to stay the same height. And then we're going to curve this one down, and we're going to meet with our tail. And we meet up with that. So that is our basic holly leaf. Now you can come and you can change a different color, which I love to do because it just adds so much more dimension to it, and put a vein right down the center. You could leave it that way, or if you want to, you also can put in some smaller strokes. And these, I'm just pulling them just a little bit and lifting it, but you could switch to a smaller tool if you wanted. Now we're going to show you how to put a holly underneath this one. So this guy, our middle one, is on top. So we're going to come out underneath him. So that's our first stroke. And then our stroke that stays the same length. And then curve to form the sharp tail. Now we've got this side, but most of this side would be underneath. So we're just going to do the tail stroke right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my veins in. And again, if you wanted just those, you can do just those. or if you want more veins, you can add more veins. Now we can go over to the other side and do the same thing. So we're going to pull him out and curve that around. Pull our middle one for the tail, and then pull the tail meeting up, forming the third holly leaf there. And again, pulling that vein nice and long, just start where it would come out. And then some other little veins. I usually, when I do the holly leaves, I just usually do the center stroke. I usually don't put the other little veins around as much. I don't quite like them as much. Now, of course, we can finish off our holly by doing 3 big red berries. These are bigger than most of the holly leaves I do. I usually do my holly leaves pretty small. I put them on different things, candles, magnets, all kinds of fun things like that. Check out the other YouTube videos and they'll show you those as well. So, and by switching even to a smaller tool yet, you can make them a lot smaller even than what I'm doing here, but just to kind of give you an idea. And then have the bigger red berries. Now, I'm going to tell you another little cheat thing. If you had berries that big, you could use a pencil eraser. And I was on top of my other one, so it kind of slid to form the bigger berries. Just dip that in the wax, and that way you get a bigger berry. So you have those nice and big. And then I will add some white with a texture brush to kind of give those the magic Christmas spirit. And I think those are really fun. I use those a lot. And that is how we do our holly leaves. I'm going to show you how to create a fern leaf. And the fern leaf is probably the more complicated of the leaves I like to do, but I think it's really whimsical and fun to do. So I'm going to show you how to do that. The first thing I do is I put my center on, and I use my wax liner to do that. And I use a different color than what I'm going to do my leaves. So I'm going to use green on this, and then yellow-green on my leaf petals. So we've got that. We've got that nice and curly. Make sure you get that curl up really nice and good for that. And we're going to start out with bigger leaves here as we're working our way up. And I've done some where I just do one side. In fact, we'll show you that first. We'll start with that first. And as I'm doing these leaves, we're going to do them a little bit different. I want them a little bit fatter. So what I do is I set them down and pull them up. So instead of pulling a long stroke like we normally do, it's a fat little stroke. So we've kind of got them going like that. And then you kind of decide when you think it should go to the next size. And I'm going to switch down to my number 1 tool. I was working with my number 2 tool. Let that warm up for just a second there. And same thing, kind of pulling these up. So we're getting smaller as we go here. And we're going to jump down to our next tool. And get those even smaller as we're going here. Isn't that fun? And I'm going to even go to our brand new tool, the itty bitty. And we're going to get some real small ones in here. And you kind of want them just to almost fade out. So there is one side of that. And if you liked it just like that, I want to tell you what you can do. Instead of bringing leaves on the other side, you can either do strokes with the tool, or you can come back in with your wax liner and add some more wispies. I kind of messed that one up there, but that's okay. So you could have it like that instead. So there's all kinds of fun things you can do. I hadn't warmed my tool up there yet really well. You also can do it reversed and pull the strokes inwards. And I'll show you what I mean by that as well. So we're going to pull some of these strokes from the outside in this time. Now see what I mean? We pull them out here. This time we're pulling them in. And on this one I want to show you what it looks like to do both sides. And I'm going to switch down a tool size because I want them to go smaller. And I'm still not pulling my strokes all the way. I'm just kind of pulling them and lifting them. So, and I'm going to quit there because I'm going to show you something else we can kind of do with these. Instead of the liner, or even if you put the liner on, that's okay. You can put strokes on. So we've got a stroke there. I want to give it more of a whimsical feel, so I'm going to give it a stroke there. And you can use the strokes to kind of fill in. Now, I'm going to be crazy and even add on to the top there. So that is our basic fern leaf, and I've shown you several ways to kind of mix that up. And that's what I'm kind of trying to teach you, is how to change things up and how to grow on it and do your own thing. We're going to be working on a little rose, and what that is just a real simple rose, and I found it easier for me to trace it on and then put the wax on top than if I tried to do it. I just didn't seem to come up with the right positioning. So I'm going to put a dot in the middle, and we're going to pull one stroke from the left, one stroke out just a little bit from the right, and one a little bit again for the left to create our little rose. Now he's little. If you wanted him bigger, you could make him bigger and just use a bigger tool, but I like the real delicate rose. So I'm using my number 0 brush, the larger end, and tool, not brush, and I'm going to pull it from the left and stop when I get to the end of that line, from the right, and stop when I get to the end of that line, and again from the left. So you should have a total of 3 strokes. Now the dot we put in the middle, we want a little bit bigger, so you might want to jump up to a bigger tool. Now that's our little rose, but we're going to add on to it. And you can use a green or a yellow green, it doesn't matter. But I am switching back to a larger tool because I want to pull a nice long tail. So I'm going to start right up here at the bottom of my rose, and I'm going to pull that tail nice and slow so I get that nice stroke there. And then we're going to move to the left side, and we're going to pull one off kind of down and make it kind of look like a petal. Give it a little bit of a curl. And we're going to do that again on the right side. If you wanted to switch to a smaller one to make sure that those were going to be a little bit smaller, you could. But there is our basic rose. And don't get stuck in thinking that a rose is red. It can be pink, it can be yellow, it can be all kinds of fun colors. So just know that you can change colors around, and that'll change our design. But if you make it small, that's a fun little design to put on a lot of small items like a heart ornament or different things like that. In this video, we're going to do the big rose, and I'm going to start out with smaller tools and work as I get bigger around the outside. So we're going to start with a dot, and we're going to do 3. When nature always does flowers in odd numbers, it's more appealing to the eye, so we want to start out with 3. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can keep the strokes all going the same direction, And I'm going to do both at the same time so you can kind of see the difference. Or, we'll get one going over here. You can kind of pretend that this is the top, so every time you start, you have them start coming down from that direction. So we're just kind of doing little C-like strokes. So this third one, you can just decide which way you think he should be going. So I'm going to jump up to the next size tool, and which would be my number 1. And we want to put probably 5 strokes now, and you kind of want to put them opposite of what we did before. So we're going to try and get, so this one, for some reason I started having the strokes go the other direction instead, so but I'm just going to follow that. That's okay. There's no right or wrong. You can't mess this up. But on this one, again, we're going to start up here so he looks more like he is opening from the top. So that guy will come this direction. And then the last one can go either way, it doesn't matter. So we've got 2 rows on, so I'm going to switch my tool one more time to a bigger tool. And you can either get 6 or 7 on this time, depending on what you have room for. And you try to want to get that curl up and down. You don't want them flat. You want them more petal shaped. Now that guy, I didn't quite even it out right. We're going to show you why that's really good to do. So on this guy though, I'm going to bring him over just a little bit so we don't constantly have a line there. And we're going to make his outside petals. And then we'll switch here. But we're still having all of those kind of up near the top so we look more like at the top. But there you can mix and match whichever direction you want the stroke to go. There is no right or wrong on those. There's just how you decide to do it. Now to really complete the rose, we're going to add our basic leaf. And because I have an open spot here, I'm going to use and fill that in. So we're putting the first one on, curving it around, and bringing that second one and curving it around. And I'm going to change the color. You don't have to, and I'm going to bring that right there and put that down right there. So on your roses, again, think about having an odd number. So I'm going to place another one here. And I'm going to do one closer to that one for a total of 3 leaves. See how simple that is and how fun that was? That really wasn't hard at all. And that is our big rose. I'm going to show you how to do a rosebud. We've done the little rose and a big rose, so now we're going to kind of do a rosebud. And this one I'm going to draw on. I think it's just easier for you when you first do it. So we're going to draw one line going this way, and one going this way, and one coming up, and one coming up there. Now remember, your lines are just a basic idea. If you don't go over them, it's not a big deal. Just get rid of them and go with your wax design. That's just fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull a stroke, and it doesn't matter which direction you go on this to start the top of the rose. And we're going to pull it one direction, and whatever direction you pulled it from, flip it over and pull the opposite. So we have that going that direction. Now I'm going to switch up tools here, and I'm going to go to a bigger tool than what I used there, and just depending on the tool size, and depending on how big you want your rose to be. So I'm going to go ahead now and pull this rose up here, starting at the bottom. Pull it up on both sides, and right there. Okay, Now that's basically all that we're going to do with our red, and then we're going to go ahead and put our green in, and you can decide what color of green you want. It can be the yellow green or the green, it doesn't matter, or another color. So my first stroke is I'm going to put it right up the center of that and lift that to make a sharp point if you can get it there. And we're going to pull one down the opposite direction, making our stem. And then we're going to pull one up the side. And the other side. Now, to give it a little leaf, you could set this guy and just lift him so you have a fat little leaf right there. Now, this is a bigger one than I normally do, so it to me looks like it has open areas right here. And this is where I want you to start thinking about how you can fill things in. So you could come and fill that area in with another stroke kind of like that, and start thinking about how you could do a tulip as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish off the rose with, I'm going to pretend that my yellow green is yellow because I don't have my yellow warmed up right now, and put descending dots in there to make the center of the rose. And that is how we do a little rosebud. We're going to show you how to make a basic sunflower, and I'm going to start out with the center of the flower, and I'm using my mini craft template, the circle, and I'm going to use my larger tool and the small end, so I'm using the number 2 tool. And I'm going to start by pulling out the first stroke and curving it in. So we're going to go the opposite direction now and pull that. And it's probably easier if you have it so you can pull them towards you. I always tell you to pull the stroke towards you. So we're going to start each time at our center there. And these two can touch. That's okay if those strokes touch. Try and pull them long enough that they meet up at the tail. So we're doing it all the way around. You could do your sunflower in orange. If you wanted to as well. And this is dandelion color, not yellow. Yellow is thinner, and I do not like it as well. I really like the dandelion color. And so we're going to bring that out. Now, I'm going to switch colors just for the fun of it. And I'm going to go over to my orange, and we're going to pull a stroke right up the center. You could keep this in the dandelion color. That's whatever you want to do. And you can wait and do the stroke in a moment too, instead of stop and doing it now. But this is a single layer sunflower. So we're going to make it a double layer sunflower. And what we're going to do is we're going to come in between these two petals and we're going to pull that out. Just the same as we did before. And you're going to see how much more this really adds to the design just by adding that second layer on there. And you could come in here and on this one, instead of doing one, I'm going to do two. Just so you can see how to do that. So you don't have to have them look all even. You can change that up and do that, or you could even skip a row if you wanted to. Make sure you're loading for each and every stroke because you're running out of wax. Now, see where these are open? Way down here is where we're going to come in and pull our middle out from. So it starts way down there. And you could switch to a smaller tool and pull 3 little tails up or little strokes up, whatever. You don't have to just pull one if you would prefer it that way. You also could come back and add a couple of around for a third layer here and there. There is no right or wrong on that. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a basic leaf. Now see how this area is really open here? It's really missing something. So we're going to put a basic leaf there. And this is my green color. I'm still using the same tool. And I'm going to add one here. I'm going to do 3 because it's more pleasing to the eye to have 3 than it is to have an even number. Nature grows its petals on flowers in 3. So we've got that. And you could have 2 close together over here. You could do 5. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. And then I'm going to put a vein in the yellow-green right down the middle of those. And there's our sunflower. Now, I'm going to come in and do the middle now. And I'm going to start with brown for the center. And there is no right or wrong on colors. I'm going to do maybe brown, maybe some yellow, maybe some orange. You could do orange and yellow. Now, try not to let the dots touch while they're drying because they'll run together and you don't get that nice round. You'll just get a glob of wax. So we want to kind of keep them separated, and it doesn't take very long for them to dry. You also can do this design, and by simply changing the colors, you can make this a poinsettia. Just change it to red, and you have a poinsettia. And on the center flowers, maybe you want to do yellow and gold, metallic. I think that would be kind of fun and pretty to do the metallic dots in the middle. It would give it a little bit of sparkle and a holiday feeling. So you have different options on what you can do. You make them smaller, you can make them bigger. That's all up to you, whatever you want to do. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish this design with yellow on top, so that brown is now kind of in a background, so it's kind of more of an after color. You could do the middle in brown and black if you wanted, whatever you think those colors should be. That is totally up to you. But that is how we do the basic of a sunflower. And just take what you've learned and grow on that. Instead of doing the 1 stroke, we talked about doing the 3 little strokes. You can add the little strokes to the vein outside of the leaves to kind of change that a little. Let me kind of do that real quick so you can kind of get an idea what that would look like. That kind of makes those leaves look different than the middle leaves. You can do a heart leaf as well, which really looks good with a sunflower too. And you might like that better. So just think of the different things we've tried to teach you. Change them up or use something from this and one from that and make it your own. But that is how we do a sunflower, or if it's red, it is a poinsettia. We're going to work on a daisy, and I'm going to start by making kind of an oval shape for the center of my flower. And you can make that smaller. It's probably a little bit bigger than what I want, so I'm going to go a little bit smaller. So we'll kind of make it right about there. And I'm going to be using the large end of my number 2 tool, which is the largest one, because we want these to be really fat on the outside of our flower petals. So we're going to start with our first one coming right down the middle. Now I did drip. You do get a little bit more wax with this tool, so be a little bit more careful with it. Now the second one, I'm starting to go out to the side and curve it to the right a little bit more. And I'm going to keep going that same direction. curving that, bringing that around. So now I'm going to go and do the other side. When you're working with a bigger tool, and you may get it to drip a little bit more, take it around your project, not across your project. So if it drips, it doesn't drip on something you've already done. And you can go down a tool size as well. Now see how we're curving these to the left now? And we're just going to kind of continue to go get those curved in. We're going to join them up in the middle. So one more there. And got a couple more to fill in. So in this middle one, you can curve it a little bit or you can make it more straight. That doesn't matter. Now, it's also nice if like these are shorter on the sides and the ones on these sides are longer too. You also could do more of a complete circle and have them more even looking so that you're looking at it head on. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do the daisy. So we're going to go ahead and put his dots in the center, and we're going to do descending dots. And when you're doing descending dots, I'm going to start them on the outside of the petals just a little bit up in them, but don't let your dots touch. You don't want your dots to touch until they start to dry. Otherwise the wax all runs together like that and you don't get individual dots. So that's the reason that we do that. And you could do these all yellow. You could do yellow and brown. You can do them however you want to do them. So those have dried well enough. So I'm going to just do the second color, brown. And we're going to add some dots in here. I didn't let my tool get warm. And we're just going to complete that. And you also could put orange in here, you could put gold in here, whatever other colors, or just do just yellow. I think I don't quite like the brown in there as much. So I'm going to kind of cover that up a little bit more, just so we have just a little bit of brown showing, because I like the yellow better. But you can see by letting them dry in between that we're getting more of a dot shape. And that is how we do our daisy. And I would probably do long stem with our wax liner and maybe a leaf, a big leaf off to the side, but that is what I would do with that one. Now, there's a bunch of different things we can do to the flower. And one of the fun things that I like to do is I like to do descending dots starting at the middle. You could even just do one dot, but I like to come in the middle and do descending dots on each one of those. And how much room you have is probably going to depend on your tool size. I think that just kind of gives it that flowery look to me. Fun, festive kind of look. Try to make sure that your dots aren't close enough that they run together. Now, instead of the dots, you could come in and you could do strokes on each side of the leaf, or you can do both. So we've talked about basically 3 different things already on the inside that you could do. Just one dot. You could do one dot and the 2 strokes. You could even pull the strokes up from this direction and go this way instead of putting anything else in the center. So this flower especially, there's just really start to get you thinking about all the different things that you can do to it. There's so many different ideas. So we've done that. One of the other things that I like to do with this flower is do the dot on top, right where the petals meet. Now, we'll do that all the way around. Do your dots nice and slow so you don't get these little flecks of colors. Those happen when you're doing them too fast. Now see how that even totally changed our flower. Now you can also come in and add a stroke right down the middle, and that's why I left the room for that, and totally changes it. Or you can add the stroke going this direction, which again totally changes the flower. So you have all of these different options. Another thing that I do, instead of doing the one dot at the ends, I will do descending dots off of the ends of the flower. So you're totally changing that again. So just think about what you can add to it, what you like, what you don't like, and just start experimenting and adding your touch to it, because you may like it a certain way and not another way. Now, of course, we're going to finish this off by adding our center here with descending dots. Make sure your dots are not touching until they're completely dry. Otherwise the wax will run together and you'll lose your dot shape. You can make this a smaller circle. It doesn't have to be this big of a circle. And another thing I do to these flowers, and you can totally change the look of it, instead of doing dots, do the circle stroke pattern in it, how to make a small circle. So you just divide it off into strokes instead. Instead of brown, I'm going to add some orange here. And just keep on adding it. So by changing your center to dots, or instead of dots to the circle, you totally change the look of it again. And then you can decide if you want to add flowers to it or petals to it, or what you want to do with that. So that is totally up to you.
I hope you enjoyed our little video for you today. For any of our products, please visit miriamjoy.com, and thank you and God bless.